Seeking the wise.
With Aaron and Alexander discussing the Just philosophy.
Covering self-development, emotional processing, conscious relationships, and 5 levels of overall wellness.
Welcome to the Wise podcast once again. I am Aaron, and along with me is Alexander.
Hello, everyone. So good to be with you. Looking forward to diving into another episode. What are we getting into today?
So I've not shared this with Alexander, so we're about to take on a journey together. And this experience comes from the last 3 weeks, and it comes along with the experience of purchasing a car, or wanting to anyway, the journey of that. So I've been feeling like my car is getting older, and I've had it for 7 years, and I don't know if that's like a subtle energy I'm picking up on, or it's me projecting that onto it, but I haven't had to do any sort of like maintenance on it other than, the typical, oil change, stuff like
right.
that, air filters. And I've been so grateful for that because I know other people struggle with cars, and I've had 7 years of good luck. And I know in the past I've had the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been thankful for that. But I've just been kind of feeling like, okay, it might be time to start to look for something else, something a little newer. I'm a very practical person, so I'm not like out there trying to get the best of the best. Like even I remember purchasing this car. It may have been, I guess, right at the beginning of the podcast. I remember discussing it with you because it was in my Neptune period and Mercury Retrograde. It was like March. It was around March of the year, and there was Mercury Retrograde going on too. And I remember asking you, hey, would you rather buy a car? Because you're not supposed to, really sign contracts, because there can be things that you don't necessarily pick up on, or you don't see clearly. And I remember asking you, would you rather purchase a car or sign a contract if you had to, in Mercury Retrograde or in your Neptune period? And I was kind of balancing both. I think there was an overlap there.
Right.
And, I ended up, buying a car, and I can't remember, honestly, which one it was in. I want to say it was probably still in my Neptune period, but outside of Mercury Retrograde.
Right.
If I had to guess or try to remember. But I knew Mercury Retrograde was in this time period as well. And the initial thought that came up was I saw my car that I have now in a different color, and I was like, oh man, I've always wanted that color, So that kind of started the thought process. Oh, well, let me see, how much those cars are, because my current car is a 2015, so I was looking at like 2017s, a little bit newer, but you're kind of still running into the same issue. It still is getting older. I mean, 2017 is still 7-8 years. It doesn't seem like that long ago
Right.
for many of us. But and then I kind of started looking at the interiors of the cars. The Santa Fe, which is a Hyundai product, and then the Tucson. They're kind of go hand in hand together, made by Hyundai. And I started looking at the interiors, and when the interiors were updated, and then I saw which one I liked better. And so those were only on like 2022 and above. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe, is that even in my budget? What is my budget? So I've had to go through those things. And it's not that like I can't afford a lot. I can afford a lot of car, but do I want to? Like, is that me?
Sure.
And because I have spent the last 7-8 years lowering lowering my bottom line, so I wasn't playing like keeping up with the Joneses. I don't have the top of the line cell phone, I don't have the top of the line car, I don't have the top of the line house. It's just trying to lower my basis so I can live more freely, and not have to work as much and be more creative, because those are the things that I prioritize. And so I'm setting my life up so I can have that creative time and doing the podcast. I kept looking at how much that would cost me and how much money would I put down to get a payment around what I was comfortable paying. And I just kept seeing more and more cool stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
It's out there.
there are there are so many there's so much technology in the new cars today. It's absolutely unreal. In most standard cars, I would say it goes back to like 21, 22, maybe even before that. They have a thing where it will it's basically self-driving.
Mhm.
You put it on, and so you can like take your hand off the wheel and it'll just follow the lines and it'll just keep steering you in it. Like if you're on the highway, you can just put that on, and then they have this cruise control that adjusts based on the car in front of you. So you never have to do anything.
All right.
It's a little scary, but
Yeah, I've
I
got a
mean,
friend
yeah.
that's got a Tesla that I experienced that in, and
Oh,
it
did you?
was, very, very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, those are probably the things that I might be comfortable using, but then there's other things that I'm not sure about, like, your car shuts off at a stoplight, or it automatically puts the brake on so you can take your foot off at a stoplight. And again, like, I have nightmares about not being able to stop my car and it's just rolling forward. So like that plays into those fears of mine. So I don't know
Sure.
if I could do that, but I knew what I was about when I went into the process, and I knew Mercury Retrograde was there. And in my research, I just kept finding things that I was like, well, if I am going to buy a car, maybe I should, you know, get the one that I want, or get the one, so I'm not like getting a 2020 and then, 5 more years I might need it. Like, so, and then you have to play with the warranty thing. It's like, if you
Mhm.
get an older car, it's not coming with any sort of factory warranty, so then you have to shell out, another 3,000 if you want a warranty. You don't need one, but they like to play on your fears, the people at the car dealership,
Yes,
and
I
and
do.
I identified that, and I'm pretty strong-willed. But needless to say, I did get sucked in a little bit, and I identified a car that had pretty much everything I wanted. It was the top of the line model. It wasn't the top of the line year, but it was a top of the line model. It was a 2022. It had a panoramic sunroof slash moonroof. I mean,
Oh,
it's
nice.
it's it's nice. And so I did a search for, to find where all those were, and I found a good price on one a couple hours away, and I contacted them and told them, "This is what I want. This is what I'm looking for. Is this still available?" Because I contacted a lot of places, and they do the bait and switch. They have a car that's pretty cheap. You call them, they won't tell you they don't have it. They want to get all your information first, and then they'll
Mhm.
be like, "Oh, sorry, man, it just sold, bro. But
Mhm.
we have all your credit information. Let's get you in something else." Um, so luckily, I was aware of that, and I didn't give any of my credit information. I would ask about the car, ask specific questions, and then they would tell me, "Hey, it just sold," and then I'd be like, "Oh, well, that's the one I'm looking for." So,
Mhm.
so I was able to avoid that. But this place was like, "Yeah, we have it. It's a dealer trade, so we're getting it in, and um, let's get the process rolling." So I was like, I don't, because these cars are going fast. So I was like, okay, well, let's get it done.
Let's jump on
This
it.
is the one I wanted, or this is the one I thought I wanted.
Yeah.
And so they get it in, they send me some videos, it looks like what I've been researching. I did go and I did test drive some of these cars, but obviously not this specific one, this specific model. I did like how they feel just like the car I have now. They feel sturdy. Um, but when I was test driving, I really resonated with the guy that I was with, and we were talking, so I didn't really get the focus. I wasn't by myself. And these new cars, they have the digital, or some of them have the digital gauge panel,
Mhm.
which I kind of didn't really get into when I was test driving because I was distracted. It's short, you're not really, in that full mode of interacting with it with your
Mhm.
eyes and everything. So I sign all the paperwork for this car. This woman tries to talk me into the extended warranty because right off the bat, she tells me that if the screen panel breaks or goes out, one, you don't know how much gas you have, you don't know how fast you're going, and she's like, it's like $6,000, and I'm like, oh man, that's a lot. Yeah, maybe I need to rethink this. And then she's like, yeah, those moonroofs are nice, but they're only covered under warranty for 3 years, 36,000. The car that I was buying was just over 36,000. So I'm like, oh, and then so she told me this stuff, and she's trying to get me to buy the warranty, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm making a mistake buying this car.
Yeah, right.
So she's like talking me out of buying the car, but she thinks she's just trying to make money. And I was like, you know what? Okay, the warranty makes sense, but it's adding like $60 a month to my payment. But I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I mean, if the screen does go out, I don't want to shell out $6,000. It makes sense to get the warranty. So I agree. We got off the phone. She said she's gonna send me the documents. I get the documents in, and I'm like having second thoughts. I message her. I'm like, do you have a brochure on like how this warranty works? Because I'm like, a lot of times you buy a warranty and then there's all these stipulations that you never saw. And they always like weasel their way out of paying. So I want to know exactly how the process is. Do I have to front the money first? That comes up a lot where you front the money and then you have to fight with them to pay you back. And that's not how if I'm going to get a warranty, that's not what I want. So she doesn't message me. So I call her and I go through the whole phone desk thing to get to her. And I'm like, hey, you didn't answer your text. Do you have a brochure? Or no, at that point, I had done my own research actually while waiting for her to respond back to me. And I realized that, you can buy a warranty after the fact. You don't have to buy it from them. And because
Sure.
I would still have 3 more years of the factory warranty before I needed one. And so I'm just double paying for 3 years when I can get one, down the road. So that's something they don't tell you. And so they just, they're making a lot of money off the warranty. And so when I got a hold of her again, I told her, yeah, I don't want the warranty. I'm sorry, you got to resend the paperwork, but I don't want it. And she tried to convince me one last time. And I was like, no. And then her voice changed. It sounded like she started crying. And I don't know in that like 30 minutes or whatever, if she had already spent the money that she was getting the kickback for, I don't know. But
Right.
her demeanor changed and she was like blabbering as we got off the phone. And I was like, oh man, that's kind of weird. I just changed her emotional state based on my, but I did feel bad because
Preference.
she did have to go through all the paperwork again. But it was funny because when I said yes to the warranty, she got the paperwork done in like 10 minutes. And
Right.
then after this, it took hours. And I messaged her in between. I'm like, hey, just checking in. I want to make sure that you didn't send it already. And she's like, it's going to be a long time. So I was like, all right. I mean, it's all good. But eventually I did get it. Eventually I did sign it. And she was like, when she did send it, she was like, don't worry that the warranty information will still be in there, but I won't send it to the bank. And so I still had to go through digitally and sign that paper, the same paper I did sign or I didn't sign before, but she wasn't. So there's trust there. So I made sure I took a screenshot of our conversation on text just to make sure that if she did send it to the bank, I did get my payment and it was $60 more. And they want to claim that I did sign the warranty paper. I could say, well, she told me because I had to advance, because it was in there. I don't know if she just couldn't take it out or something or what, or it was just easier for her to update documents instead of doing a whole new thing. So anyway,
Right.
I signed all the paperwork, sent it to her. And then a couple hours later, I felt a little weird. I didn't feel like happy or ecstatic, or I felt kind of like maybe I was making a mistake. I was second guessing. I started looking up the sunroof thing, and Hyundai had like sunroof glass exploding on people like 3 or 4 years ago. And then a lot of people were experiencing the the sunroof's like where the mechanicals just stop working and it's stuck open. And I'm like, man, and allegedly it's not covered under warranty. So I'm just rethinking all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah. So I sent her a message, and I was like, please don't send to the bank until I go there and I test drive it. I want to test drive it and make sure it's for me, and
Sure.
then the deal is done. And then she didn't reply. The next morning I sent her, I was like, did you see that message? She said, sure. She said, I can always cancel the transaction if you come here and decide you don't want it. So I was like, okay, great. So if I do have buyer's remorse,
Right.
I have an out there. So I go there. Was it like a couple days later? I go to the place, and the guy I was dealing with, the salesperson, his name was Aaron too.
Okay.
And so we had that kind of connection. But the whole energy of the place was really pushy, really like fast paced. Like it wasn't really about customer service. It wasn't really about, you making sure that they get you in the car that you want. It was just kind of pushing it out, because he said that
Mhm.
they sell 350 vehicles a month. And I thought that was insane.
Right. Yeah, I saw it.
So I go there, and he's like, yeah, I didn't think you're coming till tomorrow. Let me go check on that car for you. And I'm like, I don't know how you didn't get that message.
Right.
Because I told you I told you right at the beginning of our conversation, what day I was coming. So he goes, they were like cleaning it, I guess. And so he pulls it up front like 20 minutes later, and he's like, here are your keys. I told him I wanted to test drive it in case he didn't get the memo. So he's like, yeah, here, you can go by yourself. So I go to the car, inspecting it. There's a giant like chip underneath the car door that I never saw, right down to the metal.
Mhm.
And I guess you don't put the key in anymore. You just press a
Yes.
button, but you press a button, and there's like, it says like you have 17 miles to go before you run out of fuel.
Mm.
And I never let my car go down that low. That's
Right.
crazy. So I was like a little afraid to take it on test drive because I didn't want to run out of fuel. So, told him, and he did come and fill it up. But I love the car. Like the look was great, but I got in and it just didn't feel like me. It just didn't feel like me.
Mm.
I don't know if it was too fancy. There was too many gadgets. Took it on the test drive, and my brain just couldn't really focus on the LCD screen. Like
Mm.
there's a difference there. And again, like I probably could get used to it. I probably could get used to it.
Mhm.
I can get used to anything. We all do every
Mhm.
day. Um, but I didn't feel it. Um, I wasn't excited. And they have a thing called Apple Play and Android Auto, where you can just plug in your phone or wirelessly sync your phone to the screen, and so you don't have to be like using your phone for navigation. It'll just come up on the screen. So I wanted to try that out, and it turns out that you have to have Siri turned on in order to use Apple CarPlay, and I
Mhm.
don't use Siri, and I'm not going to use Siri. And so the whole point of the screen and the thing is so you don't have to use your phone. And now I'm like, well, what's the point of having a new car with a screen I can't use my phone without turning on Siri. I'm not That's
Mhm.
invasive to me. It's so that was another strike on it. And so I went back and I told them, yeah, how long do I have until, I can give you an answer, because I wanted to like sleep on it. And I said, if I could just have a day to let you know. And they kind of pushed back on that. And they were like, well, do you feel like you're not getting a deal? And I was like, no, I feel like I feel like it's a fair price. I'm not taking advantage of you. You're not taking advantage of me. And the finance woman was like, I think you're getting a great deal. And I'm like,
Mm.
that's fair.
Mhm.
You can think that. I let her say her whole piece, and I just listened to her. And I was like, yeah, I don't want the car, so you let me know what I need to do, and can we do this? And they started pushing back, and they were like, well, And then Aaron was like, "Oh, come on to my office," and he started pulling up other cars. And I get it, like they don't want the money to leave the place after they already got it. And
Mhm.
honestly, I'm already there, and if they had a vehicle that I wanted that didn't have the LCD screen or something that I felt more comfortable with, I would have no problem transitioning to another car. But
Mhm.
I told him what I was looking for after driving that and having that experience, and they didn't have it. And he spent much time. And there was a point where I knew more than him on all the trims and stuff because I did my research.
Mhm.
And he kept looking on their website to magically find a car for me. And there was a time where I thought, okay, he's stealing my time here, but I don't like a lot of confrontation. So I was like, I checked in with myself. I'm like, am I comfortable just sitting here and letting him go through his process until he's exhausted it so it's not as awkward as it could be if I just stand up and leave? I was
Mhm.
like, yeah, I feel okay about that. So I let him have his little time, 5, 10 more minutes, and then he exhausted himself. He realized that he couldn't please me, and he just kind of gave up and was like, "Hey, I appreciate, so we shook hands, and I was like, yeah, you find one that I want, and you call me, and you know, I'll consider buying it." But
Mhm.
so I did check in with that woman one last time to make sure that she was gonna, that she could void it out because Aaron said that it was gonna be on my record for 30 days, and I was like, that doesn't feel right. So I checked in with her, and she said the opposite. She said, I just called the bank. They voided out. It should take a day or two, and it should be good. So
Mhm.
I do feel a little bad because I know that I played a role in that energy. Like I went in thinking that I knew what I wanted, and I got the ball rolling. I put that initial energy in thinking, this is what I want. Let's make it happen. I told Aaron, don't sell that car. I want it. And
Mhm.
then I'm the one backing out. So I can't blame them for being pushy or trying to close the deal. I was there. I was the one with the initial energy. They weren't pushing me. I was pushing them and saying, this is what I wanted.
Right.
But there was a point where I had to check in with myself, and I really felt like this wasn't authentically me. Like
Mhm.
this whole process wasn't authentically me. And we were at the end of Mercury retrograde. This was last week, so we had just exited the main point of it,
Mhm.
but it felt like I wasn't authentic to myself. I gave it a lot of time. I gave it a lot of research, but I think I just got caught up in the idea, maybe like the rose colored glasses of what it could be like if I had all the gadgets, and then realizing that yeah, all the gadgets isn't really what I'm about and what
Mhm.
I'm gonna use, and it's a little too much for me. So I got
Right.
a little over my head there.
Yeah, and this is very common with any time that we go after something that we want. Um, we will adjust things that we know that works for us to cater to that want. And I don't want that to come across judgmental, but this is from the Just Philosophy's perspective, the purpose of being able to set our preferences to the side. And this is, a story of similar back when I worked 60 hours a week. This was like 20 some years ago. And I remember the day that I went, I deserve a better car. So instead of working less, I wanted to continue working more and then go and so I went and bought a newer car with leather interior and all this stuff, bells and whistles. And then I was camping one time and I was worried about messing up the seats and I had a tarp down, getting wood. And I was just like telling my friend, be careful not to tear the leather. And I just went, what am I doing? This is not the vehicle for me. Because this isn't the way I live. This isn't blah, blah, blah. So I wound up selling it to my brother and getting one without all the bells and whistles. And this is just a great example of that, of having an idea of what you want. But then once you get out there and you see all the things that are available, and the salesmen are there to sell you all of those bells and whistles and warranties and that kind of thing. I mean, that's their job. And typically they work off of commission. So, that's where that push energy can come. And practicing this philosophy or practicing the way that anybody wants to live, that is going to be challenged when we step into that realm of want, of desire. And this could be with a physical item like a car or house, or it can be relationships. I see this all the time that somebody will stop seeing an interest that they have, say in another person, they'll stop seeing them clearly as soon as they start having desire for them. And what they do is they start seeing them for who they feel like they could be or who they want them to be. And so they'll look past all of the so-called warning signs. Because if we just pull back from this story that you just shared to, let's call it the hawk's or the bird's eye view, is you back way up and look at it as a whole, that there was multiple times that life, the divine energy, whatever you want to call it, was kind of giving a warning sign here that this isn't in the flow of what is optimal. And again, we'll tend to look past those little signs when we have that desire. And so it's not a judgment, but it's just, I hope our listeners can hear this, that this is the point of learning to stay neutral, and that I'm not going to be swayed by the bells and whistles, by the blah, blah, blah. There's just, I've got a certain amount to spend on a car, and this is what I'm going to go spend. And then, of course, there's going to bring other options. But see, if you don't make that decision beforehand, you're likely to be swayed. And in that swaying is what creates the confusion, because we have an internal turmoil going on of our soul and what it feels like it wants and can afford and that kind of thing. And then the mind comes in and it goes, but that sunroof sure is nice. These bells and whistles, this screen. But that is the key, especially with cars, is that, well, all that's fine and dandy until something goes wrong. And then it's going to be more expensive to fix. So this is very common. And I think this is, a good time to bring this type of discussion up.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to this free full version of the Wise podcast. Now, before we get back to the episode, I just want to take a second and say, if you are loving what you're hearing, we do have a complete conversation premium subscription option where you can get all of our back 160 plus episodes to utilize and further your self-growth journey. And you can do that by going to the wisewisepodcast.com, click on the Get Complete button at the top, and follow the instructions. If you have any issues, you can reach out to me and I will help you take care of them. But this is for the serious individuals who are ready to take that next step, ready to make their self-growth journey a priority, ready to enhance their relationships all around, ready to accept the world for how it is and no longer be torn by the duality of the external reality. Oh, I like that. So if that's you, if you want to take that next step, consider supporting us on this journey and sharing this information. Now, if you're looking for a little more Alexander and maybe a private consultation, you can reach out to him at his website, thejustphilosophy.com, or email him at alexander@thejustphilosophy.com. On his website, you will see his different offerings, a variety of relationship coaching, energetic design consultations where we'll look at your human design chart and your destiny cards and provide a personal prescription for you. If you're in the North Carolina area, Alexander also has a variety of different sound journey events that are being posted on his website. He also is the inventor of the Vibertune sound therapy table, which 15 minutes on this vibrating table, listening to music that he composed, leaves you in a state of contentment. It feels like an energetic blanket has just laid upon you and you're back in the womb. It's a really great experience. So if you're in the North Carolina area and you want to reach out to him to even just ride the table, reach out to him at his email address. And of course, he has a variety of other tools and music that he's composed that you can get there. So anyway, with that said, I want to get you back to the rest of this episode and thank you for working on you. There's probably a name for this process that goes on in the mind, but you make a budget for yourself. Let's just say it's like 18,000 and you're like, okay, well, that's my budget. That's, I'm going to put so much down. So my payment's going to be around blah, blah, blah. And I'm comfortable paying that. And then when you're looking at the cars, you're like, oh, well, I kind of like the interior of this car. Oh, but it's only like 1,000 more. So, okay, you do run the numbers. You're like, okay, I can afford, like, that comes out to like $15 more in my monthly payment. So,
Right.
okay, I can do that. And then once you're at that point, like, that's your new line. And then
Yep.
you find something else. You're like, oh, well, that's only like 1,000 more. So you just keep pushing that envelope, and then you become okay with that range. And then you
Hmm.
find, and so like, that's how I feel like the dealership people, the salesmen, they play on that,
Yes.
uh, that ability to push the envelope, and then when you reduce it to, "Oh, well, it's only like $8 more a month,"
Hmm.
but all those little, like, $8 pushes, do add up. So I
Yeah.
don't know if that's, like, some sort of, psychological thing that we have in our brains.
Well, it's similar to like in relationships that will have the type of person maybe in mind. And this is getting back to setting intentions. And see, I've said over and over that when you set an intention, which setting a budget is that intention, that $18,000 is the intention. Typically I say be prepared for three obstacles right away. So that's that, oh, this is just $1,000 more. This is just $500 more, that or those obstacles. And if you're many times, most people will flex in that. But let's look at that. Same with if you have certain ideologies of the type of person that you want to be with, but then you let the person's beauty or sexiness or whatever you want to call that sway that. So maybe there's a type of personality you really don't like, and you go, okay, I don't want this in a person. But then you meet somebody that's very attractive, and they have that quality, and see, many times we'll go, well, I can help them with that. I can help them to get better. and and that's the falter, because again, let's look at this from the intention standpoint, that those aren't dealing with the challenges of the intention. It's that the universe is making it clear of, hey, this doesn't fit into your intention here. So this is where the discipline comes in, that we have to say, hey, I don't care if it's $1,000 more. I don't care how gorgeous this person is. Their personality is going to be very challenging for me to deal with. So, so I think that this is a good lesson for you and for the listeners to just really learn to work with that intention and see that the universe is either working with you or it's working against you to help you to clarify that. So I don't happen to feel, I just said working against us. I don't happen to feel that the universe works against us, but it gives us opportunities to get clear in really what's important for us and to stand in that clarity, no matter what the temptation is or the obstacle. And this is a big key, is that many times I've talked about setting an intention and preparing for the three obstacles to come. But see, the other side of that is the temptations. So see, a temptation is an obstacle too, but it plays on your desires. And this is what most salesmen and saleswomen, like, they work on. They find what that desire is, and then it's not that much more, or you can afford this. It won't be but $15 more a month, that type of thing. And again, this is opportunity to say, but that's more than my budget. So if you can't stay under my budget, I'm leaving. And and this is a tricky game in our society because it's played just about everywhere you go. And the beauty of intention is you can adjust that intention, but then it starts becoming a desire, an expectation, disappointment follows, and that type of thing. So again, I think this is a good reminder of that if you don't stand and build your intention over time and realizing that, yes, this was another Mercury retrograde, and to possibly, there's no pressure, but our society puts that pressure on us because they will say, oh, these cars sell so fast that you better get it as soon as you can. And I've heard other people very close to me do the same thing. And I just say, well, urgency isn't of spirit. So see, if it's not in a divine order or I feel rushed to do it, no, the answer is no. Um, I just ran across a piece of vinyl equipment, a receiver that is one of my what's called grails, and it's called a Sansui 8. and I have a Sensui 881, and I don't expect our listeners to understand all that, but the 881 and the 8 are very comparable. They were just made in different years. And so I've been looking for one of these 8s for a long time, and it came in. Normally they sell for about $1,100, and this one was $700. So see, it activated my desire right away. And my son come to stay with me for a couple of weeks from Hawaii, Ian, and I was talking to him about it. But see, every time I said, "Man, I really want that Sansui 8," I would follow it by saying, "But I don't need it. I've got I've got 3 Sansui amps right now, but this is like, but the price seems so good. It's $400 or $500 under what it normally is." And so I was just discussing that with him and saying, "See, I'm recognizing this desire, but right away I'm going, I don't need it." And then I said, "Well, if I sell one of my units, then I will pick that unit up." But see, Sansui 8s don't hardly ever show up. It's that pressure again that if you don't get it now, you may miss the chance. But it come back to, no, my intention is not to go into more debt, and that if I really want to get a unit like that, I need to sell one of mine and just wait until divine timing comes in that another one becomes available. So that's just an exercise that, again, here you're not in distress. Your car isn't broke down. You're trying to be proactive, but all of that is putting the power on your side. And many times pressure salesman people can take that away. They take that power away by working on those preferences. So I think it was a great experience, but I would like to suggest, be easy on yourself that you wasted these people's time, because that's their job. And that's what they're here to do. And not everybody that comes to say they want to buy a car buys a car from them. So, but utilizing this moving forward, I think can be very useful. But basically seeing how much that want, that desire, they utilize that, potentially against you. You still got out fairly unscathed because you didn't buy the car. So compliment yourself on that you didn't fall to it. But you went on a little journey and wasted, not necessarily wasted time or energy, but you expended it in a way that maybe you would have benefited in another way better. But this is a great opportunity, for growth. What do you feel like that you gained out of this experience?
Well, I am grateful that I had the awareness to recognize that it wasn't for me, especially being somebody that doesn't like conflict, a 5 profile type in the human design.
Mhm.
Because there was a point where it was like, and I've heard people say this. So, well, let me just finish my statement first, and then I'll go into the funny part of it is, there was a point where I'm like, I should just buy it and it'll be over, and I don't have to, be in this awkward situation where I now have to tell them that I don't want it.
Right.
And so to me, the easiest part was just to say, okay, I'm just gonna take it just to avoid having that discussion with
It's
them.
huge. Yeah, it's huge to see many people do that.
Yeah, and so the funny part is there. I don't know if it was like a Facebook reel or something, but there was some kind of joke out there where somebody, I don't know, something happens and they're like on a first date and they're like, well, now I have to marry them because
Mhm.
instead of saying I don't want to be with you anymore, it's just easier for them to continue going on the
Yes.
relationship, even
Yes.
though they're not interested in it. I can't remember what the actual reason was, but I've seen it a few times expressed in a few different ways. But it's that same energy.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is very common for, what Aaron said about being a 5 in the profile of the human design. These people will avoid conflict at almost any cost, and sometimes that cost is a marriage, sometimes it's buying a car. And this is very useful and I think helpful for people to know that, you recognize that, and you come really close to doing that. And that's, can be seen as a pattern, but you did overcome it. And so again, this was an exercise that you, I think, still won the exercise, although you had to go through some scrapes and bruises, so to say, in dealing with it all. But the fact of the matter is, you didn't cave into that. You didn't buy the car, and you've gained some knowledge in moving forward. And right off the bat, I would just suggest that, yeah, if Mercury retrogrades around buying a car or anything, that you be very leery of that and just go, hey, I'll wait, a month after that's done because you're not in a pressure situation. So this is the way I see working with the universe and the divine timing, and that if that car sells before, you gave that Mercury retrograde time, then see, we make our peace with that. And we just go, well, that wasn't meant to be mine anyway. I do trust that the people and the things that are meant to be in our lives will be there, and many times time frames aren't as much of an issue as people make it out to be. And if you're truly living to trust that everything's in divine order, our first pillar of the philosophy. So see, obviously you needed to go through this, but you handled it differently. You did deal with the confrontation. And again, confrontation isn't always aggressive. Many times, and I think that's important to get across to our listeners, because many times it's the fear of the aggression is what keeps the person, from doing what they really feel drawn to, not the actual confrontation. And I want to remind all listeners that a confrontation can exist if you don't entertain the friction. So you just stating your truth, and if the other person states their truth or friction, you have the right to leave and not be part of that confrontation. But it does take two to be confrontational, and so we do want to give you a win in that category. But it does seem to maybe, would you say that it's weighed on you and it's exhausted you? I mean, your energy just seems a little worn today. So how would you say it's
Yeah,
continued?
it felt like a journey.
Yeah.
Getting like the whole build up for weeks, doing the research, figuring out what I wanted, adjusting my barriers, and finally finding that one, making sure it's available, going there and test driving it, and then being like, yeah, this isn't it.
Yeah. So see, we can bring in here that there can be realistically that you built an expectation, because once we decide that we're getting something, see, we release these endorphins. And so that's the beauty of it. But then when it didn't work out, see, you have to experience the opposite, which is disappointment. And that weighs heavy. So this is yet again a good exercise in learning to manage those expectations, that even when it's a verbal, yeah, that's a sale. No, I can't say that. It's maybe 50, 60% there, but I've got to sit in it. I got to feel it. I got to drive it, before it's that 100%. And that self regulation is so important through the process of this. Because again, once we tap into expectations, we've stepped out of intention, and expectations builds this energy of the endorphins kicking in and that kind of thing. But then the cost is afterwards, see, when it doesn't play out the way you thought it was going to be, that exhausts that energy, because expectations is a high energy. And so once we hit that disappointment, then that's the what can make it feel like a journey that you walk those 2 hours to the dealership rather than driving, and that type of thing. So very common when we get disappointed that it kind of takes the wind out of our sails. But we need to remember that we manage that within ourselves, and this is the separation between intentional living and expectational living.
Yeah, I actually felt relief,
Mhm.
honestly, after. I think that woman put doubt into my mind when I didn't have it, and I was able to start processing that doubt, and then I went in when I went to look at the car and test drive it. I was probably like maybe close to a 50-50, or whether,
Mhm.
or like maybe even a 60-40 no already going in, but I was like, I have to feel it. I have to experience it. And this is probably what manifesting generators and maybe generators really, their process of buying a car really needs to be. Like, they need to feel it, they need to
Yeah.
experience it, and maybe even need to do it, if you can, test drive a car without a salesperson in it, because you have to
Mhm.
kind of be in your own energy and experience the car. And if you're with somebody else, talk it out, talk about the pros and cons, because of that salesperson, if they're there, it's always gonna be positive, 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 and you're not gonna be able to experience, the car for yourself.
Right. Yeah, and this plays into the human design, and wherever you have centers that are not activated. If the salesmen have those centers activated, then they have a manipulation tool. And so I agree that the ideal is for the person not to be in the car and you're getting to have the experience with just the car rather than the influence of most salespeople are trained to be manipulative, to find those things in the buyer that that they can push that button to pay that $1,000 more or that $15 more a month or whatever. And that's what's fun for me is that I love hearing when they shift it from they taking it off the total and they'll just take it into the payment. And oh, this will only be $15 more a month, but for 5 or 6 years, that can, of course, amount to thousands of dollars. And but they're always looking to use the smallest figures possible. Saying that's a mind trick. So
Justification tactic. Yeah.
justification, yes,
Yeah.
and to where if you go in your firm, no, this is as much as I'm paying a month. I don't care what you dangle in front of me. Um, because if we sit in prayer and we sit in stillness and we really find a number that we can be comfortable with, see, then that's what we stick to, and that's intentional living. And we wait until that lines up. I shopped for my last car that I bought for about 4 or 5 months, researching on a specific brand in a specific year, and I had to drive 5.5 hours to pick it up. But see, a lot of cars came and went in that time, and I just trusted the whole time. Well, those weren't meant to be mine because it either felt rushed or there was some kind of stress or it was a little bit more than I wanted to pay. And again, I want our listeners to be relating this to their relationships as well because this plays out for some people even more in relationships than it does material things. And I know that, knowing you don't buy a lot of excessive material things. So again, that's going to be an area that whatever we don't experience a lot, that's going to be an area that we may be weak in because we're not used to sticking to that intention. And that's why I wanted to share the story of the receiver. I mean, I love the receiver, and if it's there maybe in 6 more months and I sell a piece of equipment, then I'll pick it up. But if it's not, then I'm just going to trust that it wasn't, meant to be mine, and not lament the loss or anything like that. But it's just, it's great to see one out in the wild. I haven't seen one of those out in the wild available in years. So again, be grateful. It's a practice to be grateful for what we have and to trust in the universe and divine timing to bring us what we're holding in our vision really works for us on all levels. And again, this is very important in relationships, but also in purchasing, physical items as well.
Yeah. So just a couple questions to wrap this up, but I feel like this is where the meat is going to be. Um, so in relationships, when we put this on relationships, obviously there are some things that somebody is going to, some attributes that people are going to have, or even a car. Like when I'm looking at cars, there's only certain trims and I kind of want some of this and some of that, but I can't get it. I
Hmm.
can't get the combination of both. So applying that to relationships, there's going to be some things that you don't like about a person, but there's not going to be that perfect person for you. So
Right.
where is that line of, where do you find that line of what you can put up with, or what can you accept in a person, in balance of, the good stuff?
Great question. This is where I like to suggest for people to make a list of those attributes that's important. And then you make the list and then put them in order of importance. And so when you're thinking about a potential partner or mate, whether that's a work partner or an intimate partner, to go through and make these lists. And in the philosophy, we have these six priorities, and it's that attraction happens, love is developed, respect is given, trust is earned, energy remembers, and forgiveness is a necessity. So, see, when you're working with those six, putting those in order of importance, like where a person is involved, like is trust, love, attraction, respect. Which one of those is the most important? In my world, it's respect. Respect is in relationships even more important than love. I happen to feel that love can be developed if you have respect for one another. But as soon as respect is lost, it will tear love down. So when you're first meeting somebody, to pay attention to how they treat other people, because they're not going to treat you that way right away. They're looking to win you over. But how they treat service people, how they treat their family, like all of this is an inkling of, as time passes, how they may more than likely start to treat you. So so many times, see, people are looking for this love, but they're not focused enough on, is the person trustworthy? Are they respectful? Do they pay attention to their energy field and how their mood is affecting others around them? And then are they bitter and negative and haven't forgiven people from the past? So I think that this is a good start for our listeners to, maybe make a list of attributes that you really like that would have to have in a person or a car. And then, like I see as those bells and whistles, because if you're just thinking that, well, this is what I would like to have in a car. Okay. For me, right off the bat is reliability, not looks and that kind of thing. So if I find a car that's reliable, but it's more stripped down, but then they show me this other one that doesn't have the reliability, but it has so many more bells and whistles on it, but they go, but it's the same price. See, I want to stick to the reliable over the bells and whistles because that's my number one criteria. And many people, I feel like, don't go through the effort to really get clear in their intention of the attributes that they're looking for, either in a person, a place, or a thing. And then they're easily swayed. So the more that you get pinpointed with that, and this is helping the universe to line up to assist you. But that doesn't mean that, like the car salesman, something's not going to be offered. There's not going to be a temptation, or there's not going to be like you could have been on the way to test drive that and got a flat tire. See, for some people, that would be a message that, okay, something's going on here. Let me work with this. And if we look at life as messages like that, connecting that to our list of what's important to us, it can take a lot of the headache of worrying about making the right decision because you're solid in your intention. You're solid in the understanding that this intention is going to be challenged both with obstacles and temptations. And my job is just to simply to say no to those obstacles and those temptations because I'm going to stay in alignment. Now, as a person does the shopping for the car or meeting people, see, that criteria could change. But see, it should change in a neutral way, that you're talking to somebody and go, oh, wait a minute, I forgot about this characteristic. I really like this characteristic. I'm going to put that in my list. But see, that should be a general list, not determined on this person that you're talking to. Just like when you go to the car and you look at all the bells and whistles and the LCD screen and all that, instead of it being that specific car, you just go, do I want an LCD screen? Do I want to hook up my phone and have to use Siri for that? Well, no, the answer is no. So now I was attracted to that LCD screen when you first said it, but no, I don't want any car with LCD screen because I'm not going to utilize Siri and like that kind of thing. So see, that becomes general information, not specific to the car that you're looking at. I hope that that's coming across, to utilize our experiences and our investigation as general specifics, not specific specifics. So I hope that that come across clearly for our listeners.
Yeah, and earlier you asked me, like, what did I learn? And I think I learned that, like, doing all the research is only one part, like knowing what you want or knowing what's out there and what you
Mm-hmm.
prefer. But then tapping into that, what is authentic to you, what is important to you, like those are two different things. Like one is the knowledge and one is intimately knowing what you were saying, kind of what is best for you? What are you going to utilize? You have to get over the, oh, it would be cool if I have a
Hmm.
sunroof, but what's
Right.
the practicality of it? But if you're not a, if practicality isn't you, and you are more like Queen of Diamonds energy, where you like more of the finer things, and that's there's no judgment in that, then
No,
you may
pay for
not
those
care
bells and
about the
whistles.
practicality of it.
Right. Yeah. Pay for the bells and whistles. That's not necessarily a negative thing. And again, that person that's in their design, they may not have the complications of somebody that was designed to be more frugal, but they get talked into these bells and whistles, and then they soften on their morals just a little bit to be influenced, and then they may have situations with that. So again, the rules aren't the same for everybody, and this is again why we support the destiny cards to help us understand our personality and our potential, and then the human design to understand our energy makeup and how we are actually manipulated by others. And so this isn't just a one way for everybody. It's just that, those people, such as the Queen of Diamonds that you said, that really likes nice material things, then see, they're going to start with their intention of those bells and whistles being high on their priority list. And so they might even have salesmen trying to talk them out, see the opposite, try to talk them out of that to put them in something that they weren't designed for because that's what they have on their lot. So, see, it goes both ways. The main thing is, though, when you recognize that you're being manipulated or tempted, that's the time to create space. And like you said, you wanted to sleep on it. Like that's a way to create space. And again, if they show any kind of, this is very important, anytime somebody shows some kind of angst toward the situation, the answer is no right away. I mean, unless you want to bring that energy into your world. But that's what I suggest people in both relationships and material things is as soon as somebody presents an angst to you, an ultimatum, that kind of energy, then the answer is no right away because urgency isn't of spirit. Time doesn't really exist the way that we think that it does in this linear manner. And people use time to manipulate. And so when you step back and go, okay, this time thing doesn't really exist, it's a man made thing. And they're bringing that energy, and I don't want to entertain that energy because, see, if somebody gets talked into that, they can take that angst energy into that relationship or that purchase because it was pushed on them. So again, I want to commend you on not taking the carrot, being tempted and having that experience, but you did get out without a huge payment, and now you have an opportunity to regroup. Be grateful that you don't need this vehicle right now. Take some time to be grateful for your vehicle that's been so good to you, and and then move forward. Maybe with starting that list and moving forward with now, it can be a practice field. That the practice of how you actually do this is more important or just as important as the actual purchase. And I think that that's what excites me for you in this situation is you're able to move forward in a different way, realizing how much energy and time this cost you. And now, hey, let's enter in a different way and let's be very stern, very clear what we're looking for, and don't get taken off course by that carrot that's being dangled, so to say.
Yeah, and I think this might be why I want to say in European countries they have I think they call it like a cooling off period or something where companies have to give refunds to people who have
Hmm.
buyer's remorse basically. Like they give you a certain period of time. Like sometimes when I buy vinyl from a German company, they have in their email like there's a cooling off period. And
Hmm.
so you have like so many days to just return everything if you don't want it. So
Right.
I feel like it probably is to protect that salesman energy and people who kind of feel manipulated or feel like after the fact that it wasn't what they wanted.
Yeah, because most loving people are looking for a win-win situation. Unfortunately, in sales and in relationships, people aren't always in agreement with that. They've got an agenda because they just bought a boat and they need to make a payment, so they got to sell this warranty. You know, when you said that that woman's whole demeanor changed when you didn't get the warranty. Again, message. There's just messages being dropped constantly, and when something's in flow, it does flow like much easier and with less manipulation. And so great job on, you know, taking your power back, so to say. You dipped your toe in, but now you know that, hey, before we go too far, one of the first things is I need to drive the car. I need to be in it. And can I drive it by myself? Can I be in it by myself for 10 or 15 minutes or something like that? You know, these are all now things that you have that you can utilize moving forward. So it wasn't wasted time or wasted energy as long as we develop from the experience.
Yeah, and I'll give a couple shout outs to Will of Johnson City Hyundai and Reese at Wyatt Johnson Kia in Clarksville. They were both new at their jobs within like a month or two. And so they didn't have that salesman energy. And right away, I knew just based on the energy of it because they were new. And it could be because they're new or because of their personalities. But I felt completely comfortable with them because I knew that I was in power and they were there to serve me because I'm the customer. And they kind of took a back seat as to helping me experience the test drives that I wanted or the vehicles that I wanted. They were there to assist me. And there was never any power struggle there. Like I didn't feel like I didn't feel like out of place. Like I felt like I was in power again. And it could have just been the energy of our human designs or the fact that they are new and they haven't taken on that energy yet. But I did want to shout out them because after working with them, unfortunately, they didn't have vehicles at the time that I was looking for. Like I left wanting to buy from them
Yeah.
because
It's different energy.
because they served me in the way that I felt comfortable in, and I was able to experience the cars versus like that pressure of a person like trying to talk me into it, like that. For some people, for some energetically designed people, that may work, but for me, being pressured, that makes me not want to, and that
Yes.
like so salesmen, I think this is something that salesmen don't understand that there is a difference, and it may work for some, but it may not work for
And
others.
see, and this is a perfect example to where with those people that you resonated with, you could reach out to them and say, hey, you know what I'm looking for. I'd love to buy from you. If you find what I'm looking for, hey, let's do a deal because I'm not in a rush. I'm not in a need at this point because this is just a want of yours. And again, to honor these people for their energy, their efforts, and to say, hey, here's, you know, reach out to me if you find something. Because for me, it's always about the relationship first, the connection first, and the object second. So I think that that's another important point to make, especially with the, you know, the situation in the way that it is. And now you even know more maybe about what you want, and it would be great to be able to honor those people and it be a win-win, and you know you go from there. So I think that's a very interesting
Yeah,
situation.
absolutely, and
Yeah.
and hopefully that happens, and they can see that there is a reward for serving people like that. I know after spending a good 5 hours with Will and not buying anything, and there was never any like weird energy about that.
Mhm.
I did leave him an awesome review, and I was trying to make a point about how to treat people in the review. Like it wasn't mean or anything. It was just like I highlighted the parts that he did well, which is contrary to being a salesperson. And I wanted kind of like his sales staff and his boss to see that these
Mhm.
traits are valued to some customers out there. Cause there was like one of his managers who kind of came in at the end, kind of like applied a little pressure. And I didn't
Mhm.
like that. And I wanted to kind of highlight, cause I even told his manager right there in front of Will, I was like, this guy, man, he's a good one.
Right.
Cause again,
And
I
see,
go wanted,
his boss either appreciates that or he's just looking at the
yeah,
bottom line and he didn't make the
yeah,
sale.
yeah,
So, you know,
yeah.
that's
And that's why I wanted to, in a couple different ways, show that I appreciated what he did for me and that there's
sure.
value in that versus just the dollar, because in both these situations, they don't get they don't work on commission, but they get bonuses based on, what they sell. So
Right.
there still is that pressure. That's the
Right.
new thing. Like, oh, we don't work on commission,
Yeah, but
but we get
kinda you
bonuses.
do.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah,
They've changed the language just so they can say that. I
yeah.
mean, but it's still the same system, different words, so to say. Well, hopefully, you've learned a lot, and hopefully the story will assist others, whether that's in relationships or physical things. But good job on, standing your ground overall, and not doing just what was easy, which was just making the purchase and not wanting to deal with any of the resistance. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a point where I was like, nope, these are my boundaries. And once I get to that point where I've made a decision, like nobody's going to.
Sway
It's
that.
when I'm in flux that somebody could manipulate me if
Hmm.
I'm not balanced.
And that's that want area, the
Yeah,
desire. That's when we just become weaker because we're flexing on what we set was important, which was the intention. Um, so, so hopefully everybody got something great and individual out of the session.
yeah. I'm grateful that I had a platform to share it, and everybody out there is willing to listen. So I
Beautiful.
appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Much love, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this free version of the Wise podcast. To hear the complete conversation and go deeper into the application of the tools and techniques of the Just philosophy, head on over to wisewisepodcast.com and become a premium member. You'll get to hear all of our complete conversations, including the complete episodes of our Inward Journey story series and our entire back catalog, and continue your self-development journey with us. We honor your dedication to self-growth, overall wellness, and continuing to ask the wise.
And remember, gradual changes over long periods of time equals lasting results.
Continue on your self-growth journey by visiting thejustphilosophy.com, where you are able to connect personally by booking a private consultation with Alexander in person, by phone, or Zoom. Uncover your authentic self more easily with a human design or destiny card consultation. Here you will gain information about your energetic makeup, personality, and your higher self, as well as navigating your way through your relationships. There are also multiple types of reports available for purchase that help you gain insight into your career, relationships, and opportunities for self-growth. The site also allows you to view a calendar of Alexander's live performances and class schedule, peruse other products such as shirts, CDs, and finally, the revolutionary VibroTune vibrational sound therapy tables. These contoured therapy tables allow you to bathe in a vibrational sonic bath of frequencies, bringing you into alignment on all levels. You will be feeling and hearing calming music synced through vibration and frequency. So again, you can grab all this goodness at thejustphilosophy.com, thejustphilosophy.com. The Just Philosophy, as discussed in this podcast, has been developed by Alexander over the last 25 years in his personal studies, private practice, and professional environment. The information discussed is intended for educational purposes only and is not meant as a replacement for conventional medicine. Just remember, knowledge plus experience equals wisdom. Seek the wise. We want to thank you for working on you. Keep shining your light and refining your vibe.